migration. How do I move my applications and services? Now, understanding that infrastructure and doing that brag chart is absolutely essential. Knowing what you currently have in the way of CPU and memory and the network and that disk storage system, you need to identify your landscape, your infrastructure as it stands at the moment. You need to understand how those applications and services work. You know that currently, maybe, that your infrastructure is supporting your business and is delivering those services. But you then need to understand what is then going to look like when it moves to the cloud. And there are tools that enable us to analyze that. Things like the VMware Capacity Planner, for example. And I'll come back into more of that on the capacity side in the section in a minute. But as far as that side is concerned, you need to carefully think about what you've got there already. The other element is what you're running as far as systems are concerned. There be web servers as well as database servers. You need to think about those systems and how you could potentially virtualize them. Been working with a client recently. They're combining all of their organization. They currently have 12 Active Directory domain controllers. 12. We probably could provision that as just 2 virtual machines that are running. And again, you can rationalize and look at that consolidation exercise as part of the process of transitioning and moving on that journey to the cloud. Sometimes it's a chance to revisit your infrastructure and look at what you can do with it. You also need to think about when you move forward, how the provisioning time works and how you got the resources to do that provisioning. Cloud providers may only build if it's infrastructure as a service, they'll only build the hardware, they'll only build the underlying operating system and that underlying structure for you. You need to have the resources to load your applications. It may not be you, so you need to build that into that model of transitioning forward. Is it a greenfield build? Are you going to restart those services? Or are you using the P2V, the physical to virtual translation tools that are available to lift up that physical image and put it down into a virtual? Similarly, you may already be virtualized and you just want to move it into the cloud. So you can just take the virtual image and move it across, making certain there's enough resources. So you need to plan what you need, what resources you need to actually deliver and assist in that process. And of course, when you're planning all of this, you need to make certain that you've got that little bit of headroom. You know what resources you've got now. You know you could be right on the edge of breaking that system. So you need to probably provision a little bit more headroom in your virtual cloud platform that you want to move to. Or it could be that you want to just run as it is, using consolidation to actually downsize some of those servers and consolidate some of them before you move, and then allow the cloud provider to provide you that extra growth as you grow, as your business expands. The migration is broken down really into 4 key phases. Design, and this is where I cannot emphasize enough in doing that prep work and that planning ahead really is essential. Actually making certain that you understand how and where you're moving your applications to. And, look at what the customer, what the service provider, the cloud provider is going to offer to you from your service catalog or from their service catalog. The key element here is about the expansion. You don't want your cost to run away. There may be different people running this service now from your traditional sort of IT staff, and therefore, when they add on an extra virtual CPU, an extra processor, or whatever it may be, or memory gig, you need to understand what those costs are going to be. So actually working out a cost model and managing those dripping taps to ensure that the IT don't just run away with it. Make certain that you have the necessary bits and pieces in place to control that service. Again, capacity planning. Capacity planning is essential. Actually knowing what you're taking from today and moving it into the cloud, making certain that those elements are those green elements in your RAG chart, but making certain that you're preparing for maybe future growth, and that those could be expanded as necessary. Understand from your cloud provider on whether they can actually deliver you those extra memory and processes, and how long it's going to take for them to turn that service on. So when it comes to the planning, Prince 2 may be a bit of an overkill, but use a proper methodology. Make certain you understand what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, who's doing it, all the roles and the responsibilities, and ensure that everybody understands exactly what they're responsible for delivering and when. Involve the whole business. It may be that finance suddenly have got a new idea that they're going to run the infrastructure and they're going to commission. It may be that from a public cloud provider, finance may have the company credit card, so they're going to authorize all that final extra processor, extra memory. So again, they need to be involved as part of that process for moving into that public cloud. And start the education process early. Ensure that everybody across the whole organization is aware of what you're doing and when they're doing it, so that everybody knows how you're migrating those services forward. The final two, one is build, and for us techies, that's probably the most enjoyable bit, when we actually get to get our hands on kit and actually play and move those services forward. It's the bit I enjoy anyway. So actually run through proof of concepts. Challenge your service provider to give you those elements, to actually allow you to go on and test systems and check that things are operating as you would imagine that they should do. Not just the functionality-wise, but also consider performance. Performance is key. If you're now moving that environment from downstairs in the basement to 100 miles away, you need to understand the whole end-to-end process is still operating, and you need to understand that you're getting the responses that your users are used to. And ensure that the manual processes, and I am a process guy, and I get the mickey taken out of me by my lovely sales colleagues, because to me the process is the vital bit. It has to all join together. You have to tie up one bit to the other bit. If there are manual processes that feed into the system where people understand what they're responsible for, test those manual processes. And the external interfaces, make certain that that important business file that you expect in as an EDI file that tells you which orders you need to place actually can land within inside the system. And the build leads directly into the test, making certain that all of that is together, making certain that the whole flow operationally works. The manual process, the people to support it, and the operational side, but also the technology side, to make certain that those files are handled correctly and everything else, and that you get the outputs that you expect.